The time of the slave trade is past, but the island still retains the sleepy aroma of the ancient Orient. Until Kenya's independence, Lamu belonged to the Sultan of Zanzibar. For several centuries, the slave trade made the islands of Zanzibar and Lamu powerful and prosperous. When the trade came to an end at the beginning of the 20th century, the coastal islands fell into a slow decline, and their cities disappeared into obscurity, a restorative obscurity, however. On Lamu, the architectural tradition of the old sultans has been preserved. Some of its buildings are more than 3 centuries old, and among the narrow alleyways that protect one from the heat, there is still craftsmen who carve wooden doors in the traditional style. On Lamu, there are no cars, and the only means of transport is the donkey. There are 3,000 donkeys on the island, and these are used for all sorts of services and are treated as another member of the family. The so-called International Foundation for the Protection of Donkeys has one of its branches on Lamu.
Started 15 years ago. The creator and the administrator, Dr. Elizabeth Svensson, came to visit Lamu Island, and she saw so many donkeys who needed help. We treat them if they're sick. We also feed them if they're very, very thin. And we also admit them when they need to be admitted. All is for free, no charges at all. If you look after your donkey properly, with all medical assistance, they can live up to 35 years.
The donkeys are used for everything, for construction, to cart coconuts, in farming, and even to improve mobile phone coverage.
Abdul spends all day with Buke. He lavishes all his attention on him. I think that if his uncle would let him, he would also take him fishing.
Every afternoon, Abdul goes out fishing on his uncle's boat. When his father died, his uncle Bumbi took charge of him. In Kenya, as in many other African countries, 1 out of every 10 children is an orphan. In these cases, only the extended family makes survival possible. In the great metropolises like Nairobi or Cape Town, orphan children end up abandoned on the street, begging and prostituting themselves.
My father also died when I was 15. He took me fishing from the time I was very young. I couldn't study because we didn't have the money. Everything he was able to teach me had to do with the sea. It was when he died that I decided to become a captain and work hard to get my own boat, and I've succeeded. Abdul reminds me of my own story. I'm like his father. I hope he also becomes a captain someday.
Bumbi is not only a dhow captain, he is also considered one of the best sailors on Lamu. To put the boats and their crews to the test, each year a great dhow race is held. Boats from all the islands in the archipelago take part. Last year, Bumbi and his men were the winners. This year, they're getting ready to repeat their success.
The race had just started when we tipped over. I thought that was the end, but at the first buoy, we had overtaken half the other competitors. When we reached the end, there were only 2 boats left to overtake. We passed them less than 100 meters from the finish line. Next month, we'll be the winners again.
The first thing I do each morning is go to Quran school. I used to go to normal school too, but now I have to work in the afternoons and I can't.
On Lamu, there are lots of kids like Abdul who don't have the means to study. This is the only education they receive. The majority of these kids will have to emigrate to survive. This island is lovely, but there's no work for the people. The fishing is running out, families grow quickly, and there's no longer enough to go around.
Lamu dons its Sunday best for the Great Dhow Race. Visitors arrive from far-off islands, and the entire city takes on a festive air. The day before the race, other types of competitions are held. One of these is the donkey race for children, which Abdul and Vuke take part in, without much luck. There are also swimming competitions. And it can't be said that Abdul's future is promising in this field either. In the afternoon, there is a donkey race for adults. Participants include the Formula One racers of the specialty. With style and determination, the riders and their mounts cover a full lap around an urban racecourse, which begins and ends in the port. The race is hard fought, but the donkeys don't appear too worried about who the winner is. The day of the race dawns very windy, something that doesn't favor Bumbi and Abdul's boat. Their specialty is getting the most out of no wind. In addition, during the night, the dhow lost one of its anchors and was swamped, which forced them to bail it out. At the first buoy, Bumbi and Abdul's boat is in 4th place. This is not the position they expected to be in. In addition to the wind and the whims of the sea, sailors on the Indian Ocean also have to take an additional element into account: the presence of water spirits. One man in each crew is responsible solely for warding off the spells sent by the sorcerers on other boats. Last year's victory has made them the target of all the witch doctors. That's the reason for the broken anchor and excessive wind. Boats like this have plied the waters of the Indian Ocean for centuries. Swahili traders brought their cargo to the Cape of Good Hope in the south, and the Arabian Peninsula and India to the north and east. They are still used, but huge cargo ships and light motorboats are gaining on them every day. Bumbi and his competitors will most likely be the last captains to sail these waters in the old dhows. Our men stay in 4th place for the entire race until the southern tip of the island. During the major tacking maneuver before starting the return to Lamu, the water spirits decide to play with the race. Soon the wind changes and dies down. Two of the boats ahead of Bumbi and Abdul are incapable of properly negotiating the final buoy. The race looks like a carbon copy of last year's. On the home straight, Bumbi sails parallel to the boat in first place. A few short meters from the finish line, it looks like history is going to repeat itself. But no, this year they have to be content with an honorable second place.